I think George decided 25 years ago that movies didn't look and sound as good as they ought to, and that there had to be a better way.
First impression was, I hate you. I hate that guy, man. He's so much better than I am.
I think his overall strength is understanding the power of image.
He's not this cynical man who's trying to make a buck.
I think I knew in the first screening that this was the kind of movie making that almost always works.
If I was going to describe George in one word, it would probably be playful. He's like a grown-up kid.
He's taken these old, ancient stories and projected them out beyond our imagination. And that's genius.
George Lucas, creador de un imperio.
One of the questions that people ask me a bit is that, why do you make movies? And I say, I make movies because I have to. I couldn't live without making movies. Because everybody said, well, why are you still working? You got everything in the possible world you could ever want. And I think, well, I do it because I have to do it. That is my life. It's defined that way.
George Walton Lucas Jr. nació en Modesto, California, el 14 de mayo de 1944, hijo de Dorothy y George Lucas, un exitoso hombre de negocios. Modesto era un pequeño pueblo rural al norte de California, la clase de lugar donde todos se conocen entre sí y ningún sitio está a más de 10 minutos, ni siquiera en bicicleta.
Modesto, California, your hometown.
Mm-hmm.
Describe what it was like when you were growing up as a kid.
Modesto is, it's California, but it really is the Midwest. So I grew up as Midwestern Californian. Modesto was really Norman Rockwell, Boys Life magazine, raking leaves on Saturday afternoons and having little bonfires, and it was just very classic Americana.
George era el tercero de 4 hermanos y el único varón. Sus hermanas mayores le llevaban 8 y 10 años y pasaban mucho tiempo cuidando del niño.
From a standpoint of an older sister, he wasn't a pain, he wasn't a problem for me because he was really pretty sweet. Whatever we wanted him to do, he would do.
Las hermanas de George cuidaban de él en parte porque su madre, Dorothy, enfermaba con frecuencia. Ella era una madre amorosa y estaba dedicada a sus hijos, pero en el transcurso de la niñez de George padeció de diversos problemas de salud, incluso deficiencias renales e hipertensión.
After she had Wendy, who was 3 years younger than George, her health kind of went downhill. And we had a housekeeper that came in, Till, who was really sort of part of the family. And she was there all the time, and we were never sort of without a mother figure.
Mildred Shelley, o Till, llegó cuando George tenía 8 meses. Se convirtió en una segunda madre para George y su hermana menor, Wendy. Pero a pesar de todo el tiempo que pasaba con Till, la ausencia de su madre era muy triste para George.
My mother was an avid reader, my mother until the day she died. And George is a reader. If you've been in his house, he's got books everywhere, and up in his bedroom he's got books stacked and by his bed, and he's always, his big thing, is to go down to the bookstore and browse around. So I think that was definitely from my mother.
El padre de George era un hombre trabajador que poseía una pequeña tienda de papelería y suministros para oficinas en Modesto. Era voluntarioso y muy conservador, tanto política como físicamente.
Well, my father was a very old-fashioned kind of guy, small business owner. So he's kind of a classic small-town businessman who you'd see in a movie.
George padre era considerado un hombre muy estricto, incluso entre los niños del vecindario.
My memory is you never crossed him. I mean, you never did something to tick him off. He was like a one-strike person, one-strike dad kind of thing.
My father was strict. I mean, he wasn't overly strict. I mean, he was reasonable, and he was fair. My father was extremely fair.
George era un joven delgado y de corta estatura, un maní, como lo llamaba su madre. También era muy tímido, aunque tenía muchos amigos en el vecindario. En casa de George, los niños simulaban espectáculos como circos y carnavales y construían cosas, muchas cosas. Una vez construyeron un modelo de montaña rusa.
But we built this incredible roller coaster, And in my mind now, it looks like it was probably 30 feet tall. It was probably only 4 feet tall. But we did it. It was fun. It was a great event. All the neighborhood kids came over. And, you know, we kind of got known for doing stuff like that. George was creative. He wasn't a leader, but he was much more imaginative. And, you know, you look back on it now and you can see he was incredibly imaginative. He always came up with a lot of the ideas.
Otra actividad que los niños compartían era la de leer historietas cómicas. El vendedor de periódicos locales obsequiaba aquellas que no se vendían.
We'd come home with these bushels full of them. And George used to sit out on my front porch all the time just reading them. One of the things that really came out of him that made a big influence on him and all of us, it was the values that were so important of us. There was the good guy and the bad guys. And I think that put a pretty strong print on him.
Cuando la televisión llegó a Modesto a comienzos de los años 50, George estaba emocionado. Le gustaban los programas de vaqueros y también le encantaban las series de cine de los 30 y los 40.
Flash, what are those awful creatures?
I never saw anything like them. They must be from another planet. This ray gun ought to stop them.
Desde el principio era evidente que George tenía una fecunda imaginación. Pasaba horas dibujando y escribiendo historias cortas. Una de ellas apareció en su anuario de 3er grado y era todo un presagio de lo que estaba por venir. Érase una vez en una tierra llamada Zoom. En la escuela primaria, George fue un buen estudiante que aprendió a leer rápidamente y siempre obtenía buenas calificaciones.
He did well. He was bright. George was one of the cutest that I ever had, I think. He was extremely quiet. He was as quiet as a little mouse. He never spoke unless you spoke to him first.
El gusto de George por la escuela no duró mucho tiempo. Para cuando comenzó la secundaria, se había aburrido por completo de los estudios y soñaba despierto durante gran parte de la jornada escolar. Sus calificaciones eran deficientes.
I was not a bad student. I was an average student. You know, I was a C, sometimes a C- student. I was definitely an underachiever.
La vida de George cambió en 1960 a los 15 años de edad. Los Lucas se mudaron del pueblo a una granja de 5 hectáreas sembradas de nogales. Ya que entonces estaba a 6 kilómetros de su antiguo vecindario, George se convirtió en una especie de solitario.
He started changing. He started paying more attention to records. He was becoming more introspective. He started to almost become a little bit of a ruffian, you know, starting to follow some of the bad kids.
Were you with the wrong crowd?
I was with all the crowds. I was little and I was kind of funny and I was easy to get along with. And I made friends pretty easily, so it was easy for me to do that.
Durante sus primeros años en la granja de nogales, George se convirtió en un gran aficionado a la música. De hecho, se tornó apasionado del rock and roll. Su interés en el rock and roll solo era superado por una atracción fanática hacia los autos. Cuando ya tenía edad para obtener su permiso para conducir, los autos eran una enorme obsesión para él.
You were a gearhead. What was your first car?
My very first car was a Fiat, a very small version of a Fiat.
Lucas modificó su auto y pronto comenzó a competir en carreras y a ganar trofeos. También trabajó como mecánico en el circuito de los autos de carrera. Los autos eran una especie de medio social para George, quien con su vehículo podía ir de paseo por Modesto y sacar a relucir un nuevo aspecto de su personalidad.
So in the summer, you know, cruising was the main entertainment. Sort of just going around in circles chasing girls all night and come in at 4 in the morning and get a couple hours sleep and then go off to school.
George was addicted probably more than anyone. I think, you know, where he was shy in his personal life all the time, you got him out on 10th Street and George wasn't shy.
Parecía una vida de ensueño. La música rock, los autos, faltar a clases. Pero todo eso estaba a punto de tener un abrupto final. Unos días antes de egresar de la secundaria, George iba de regreso a casa en su auto cuando fue embestido por otro automóvil. Su vehículo dio unos 7 u 8 giros y terminó por estrellarse contra un nogal.
When they arrived on the scene, I was pronounced dead, and they took me to the hospital to have a doctor do it. And they said, "This guy's not dead." And because my lungs had been crushed, so I wasn't breathing. And I guess my heartbeat was extremely weak, and they couldn't find it.
For my parents, it was devastating because it was right at the end of their road, and my mother heard it, and she, then she went down to see what had happened, and here it was him. It was her son, and it was very, very traumatic.
And most of the kids at school thought I died because it was on the front page of the newspaper. My car was this little mangled hulk that was driven down the main street where I cruised, where all my friends cruised. Suddenly they saw my car on the back of it. I mean, it couldn't even be towed. It just had to be. It was just a pile of rubble. Everybody thought I'd been killed. So it was like almost starting a new life.
George pasó 2 semanas en el hospital después del accidente y otros 4 meses recuperándose en casa. Recibió su certificado de secundaria estando en su lecho. El accidente acabó con sus sueños de convertirse en piloto de autos de carrera, pero también fue el principio de algo mucho más significativo.
I made a determination in the hospital that I was going to go on to college because I've been given a second chance. And it's amazing what's happened in my second life. And it's odd because, my first life I was sort of going nowhere. And my second life, from that moment, really from the hospital, I took off and was sort of accelerating ever since.
George Lucas había sobrevivido a un accidente de auto casi mortal a sus 18 años y sintió que se le había dado otra oportunidad en la vida. En 1962 decidió estudiar en la universidad, en sus palabras, para hacerse un hombre útil. Acudió a un preuniversitario local donde por primera vez en su vida comenzó a leer y a estudiar en serio.
All of a sudden, he took incredible interest in anthropology and a creative writing class. And you could see that, he was now a serious student, and those things really meant something to him.
Durante sus años allí, George se sintió muy atraído por la fotografía. Ya para entonces mostraba un notable ojo fotográfico.
He took some pictures of my son and daughter. He turned them back to back, and he sort of posed and made this composition, and he even signed it. At that time, he was, I think he was experimenting quite a bit with photography.
Cuando George egresó del preuniversitario, pensó que podía inscribirse en la escuela de arte.
My dad just had a fit. He said, "You are not going to become an artist. I'm not going to have an artist in this family. Artists don't make any money. You're never going to be able to support yourself."
There was always this expectation on my father's part, I think, that he would come into this business that my dad was very proud of. It was a very good business. But I think George early on, that wasn't what he wanted to do.
Un amigo de George, John Plummer, pensó en una mejor idea. Plummer pensaba estudiar en la Escuela de Negocios de la USC y convenció a Lucas de que se inscribiera en la Escuela de Cine porque, según le explicó, a George le gustaba la fotografía y eso se relacionaba con el cine, ¿cierto? Mejor aún, dado que la USC era una universidad, el padre de George estaría dispuesto a pagar sus estudios. Lucas solicitó un cupo y para su gran sorpresa fue aceptado. No sabía nada en absoluto de cine, sin embargo, decidió seguir adelante.
Wanting to go to film school at that time, none of us in a little town of 8,000 really knew what film school was. So I think it was more of a dream.
Lucas se mudó a Los Ángeles en el otoño de 1964. Rentó una casa ruinosa en las colinas de Beverly Hills y luego encontró un compañero.
We were both outsiders coming to Los Angeles to go to USC Film School. At the time, studying film was kind of like studying basket weaving. Everyone on campus thought we were just trying to get, easy A's by watching movies.
We were kind of the geeks and nerds of our era. All the girls in the dorm would look down and say, "Oh yeah, cinema students. They're all weird."
Action.
En esa época aún no existía la imagen de un joven y brillante estudiante de cine. Hollywood era un círculo cerrado y nadie estudiaba en la escuela de cine con la esperanza de hacer películas de Hollywood ni de trabajar en un estudio. Si alguien tenía éxito, podía terminar filmando películas industriales o educativas, pero si no, podía terminar vendiendo boletos en la taquilla.
The very first thing that our film teacher told us when we all assembled for orientation was, "Get out of this business now. There's no future in it. There are no jobs for any of you. Don't do this. If you quit now, you can still save some of your tuition."
Pero George ignoró ese consejo y decidió quedarse.
You get to USC Film School. What did you become aware of immediately?
within one semester, I was completely hooked. I mean, this film was my life. Suddenly cars were not important to me. Nothing was important to me except film. Because I got in there and I realized I knew what I was doing. It was like I was at home. And it's the most wonderful feeling in the world. The best feeling in the world is to be able to discover yourself, discover what it is you're good at and that you feel comfortable with and that you enjoy doing. And no matter what it is, if you stay there, you're going to be happy. You know, and eventually you'll make a living at it.
El primer curso de George en la USC fue de animación. Incluso entre todos aquellos estudiantes no pasó mucho tiempo antes de que George descollara.
That was really the first time we got a glimpse very early on of this spark that George had that really nobody else had quite in the same way. And George produced this film called Look at Life, which used the two magazines Look and Life. And he started off slow with a musical background. And then suddenly, there was a barrage in the minute of the film. There were perhaps 180 photographs, just one right after the other. And it just completely energized the class looking at this thing. Nobody expected anything like this. And it was really interestingly done with the music. So everyone turned around and said, "Who did that?" And it was George.
Esto es la vida ganó numerosos premios en festivales estudiantiles de cine. Sus otras películas también llamaron la atención. Luego de solo un año en la USC, George se había convertido en toda una estrella. Su habilidad con las imágenes gráficas, su trabajo de edición y su modo de utilizar el sonido fueron considerados extraordinarios.
He had a good graphic sense. He had a good ability to see design. George was pretty innovative in his visual psychology, if there is such a word.
Las películas de George nunca estaban centradas en sus personajes y él utilizaba muy pocos actores. Prefería hacer cintas acerca de autos, máquinas y la tecnología. Una de ellas fue protagonizada por su compañero de habitación en un papel silente y que presagiaba las películas que George filmaría posteriormente. El tema de un hombre que escapa de su pasado aparecería una y otra vez en el trabajo de Lucas. Esta película se llamaba Freiheit, que significa libertad en alemán. Trataba de un estudiante que huía de la Alemania oriental hacia la Alemania occidental.
It was in the 60s during the Vietnam War. You see the student running across the border being machine gunned, and then on the soundtrack you heard all these platitudes.
Why shouldn't man be free? Freedom is definitely worth dying for. It's the only thing worth dying for.
They're people, and people should be free.
He was able to do something that was artistic but also commercial, and I think that people saw this had a message, and it had a lot of slick style to it.
A man has to be free because it's his nature to be free.
Freiheit consolidó la reputación del joven George como un brillante cineasta. Con toda esa aclamación, la confianza en sí mismo de George aumentó. De súbito era un líder, alguien a quien otros estudiantes admiraban y buscaban como guía. Pero esa nueva confianza también le hacía pensar a George que su estilo era el único a seguir. Simplemente no había ningún otro.
The very first time I met George himself was in the darkroom of the lab. And we'd been given an assignment to take some pictures, still pictures, and develop them. And as it goes through the various stages, I was in the final stage, and I heard this voice from behind me saying, "You're doing it wrong," which was very typical of George at that time. He knew how to do it, and he was going to make sure everyone knew that he knew that.
Tal vez la arrogancia de George provenía del hecho de que él sabía que estaba en el lugar correcto y en el momento correcto.
So you were at USC, you're in film school, and this is heaven. This is even better than cruising in Modesto.
Oh yeah, this is better than anything. I basically just completely was living at 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. That's all I thought about. That's all I did. You know, I'd be working all day, all night. You know, living on chocolate bars and coffee, and, you know, it was a great life.
George hizo varias amistades en la escuela de cine que seguirían siendo sus amigos de por vida. Era un grupo bien avenido, marcado por un gran compañerismo y vinculado por un amor compartido por el cine. A veces, George y sus amigos veían 5 películas en un fin de semana. Sin embargo, excepto por las actividades relacionadas al cine, George casi siempre estaba solo. Tuvo algunas citas, pero ninguna novia formal. De hecho, salía en muy raras ocasiones.
We spent a lot of time together, and I would always try to go out to parties and to clubs and stuff, and George would usually stay upstairs in his room drawing. He'd be drawing these little star troopers, you know. And I kept saying, well, why don't we go out to a club? And he said, no, no.
George was always quiet. He, other than saying you're doing it wrong and things like that, he wasn't one of the people who would always be speaking out in class. He tended to keep his own counsel and to express himself through his films.
El trabajo de Lucas en la escuela de cine impresionó incluso a su padre. Cuando George egresó de la USC en 1966 con su título en cine, sus padres estuvieron a su lado. Sabían algo con toda seguridad, que él no regresaría a Modesto. George Lucas tenía 22 años cuando egresó de la Escuela de Cine de la USC en el verano de 1966. El primer trabajo que consiguió fue de editor de una película para la Agencia de Información de Estados Unidos acerca de un viaje del presidente Johnson por Asia. Lucas se alegraba de tener el trabajo, pero se molestaba por lo que consideraba una interferencia del director.
The director would come over and say, you can't cut this way, you got to cut this way, and I really don't like this, you know. I want to, because at that point I was really wanting to be an editor and a cameraman, and I wanted to do cinema verite documentary films. In the course of that summer that I was actually doing this, I sort of said, you know, maybe I want to be a director. I don't want people to tell me what to do.
Mientras trabajaba en la película, George conoció a una asistente de edición llamada Marcia Griffin. Se hicieron amigos y luego comenzaron a salir. La mayoría de sus citas eran para ir al cine, cosa por la que compartían un amor mutuo. Su relación pronto se tornó seria.
She was incredibly involved in the film business. She had a lot of the same beliefs that George did, and they, in those early days when I knew them, as a couple, it was very supportive. They had a mission together, what they wanted to do. It seemed like it was a very good relationship.
Marcia was very opinionated and had very good opinions about things, and would not put up if she thought George was going off in the wrong direction. She would tell George, no, you have to do this, you have to do that. So there were heated, creative arguments between them for the good.
Mientras trabajaba en la cinta acerca del presidente Johnson, George había regresado a la escuela de cine de la USC. Comenzó a trabajar como profesor asistente en una clase para camarógrafos de la Marina. Ya que tenían un suministro ilimitado de película y equipos en colores, George los enlistó para su nueva película, THX 1138-4EB.
There's a thread in your life, though, of, I think about your student films, where the odds are so against you, and somehow you make it work.
The theme that is in my movies, which I think was very strong in those days, and it's still carried through today, which is the fact that we create barriers for ourselves. We have our own mental barriers, and that keeps us from becoming all we can be, because we say, well, I can't do that. But in the end, if you can't do it unless you can imagine it. And you can't do it unless you can imagine yourself succeeding at it.
THX era una singular película vanguardista ambientada en el futuro acerca de un hombre que intenta escapar de una sociedad represiva. THX logró un enorme éxito. La película ganó el primer premio en el Festival Nacional Estudiantil de Cine y fue vista ampliamente no solo por otros estudiantes de cine, sino también por ejecutivos y críticos de la industria. Un joven cineasta quedó impresionado cuando la vio por primera vez en un festival de cine.
And I had seen about 15, 20 shorts before THX debuted. And they were all very interesting shorts, and of course THX just blew away the field. It was a student film unlike any other student film I'd ever seen before, and there was nothing that audaciously placed on the screen. There was nothing to compare the production values to what George accomplished on the shoestring.
Después de la función, Spielberg fue tras bastidores donde pudo conocer a George Lucas.
My first impression was, I hate you. I hate that guy, man. He's so much better than I am. What a great movie, you know. How can I ever make a movie that great? And, you know, and George was a really friendly guy, you know. Hey, how are you? That kind of thing, you know. Hey, how are you? And we shook hands and became friends, you know, from that moment on. It was, you know, the friendship actually began with the handshake.
El éxito de THX ayudó a Lucas a ganar una beca de estudios de 6 meses en los estudios Warner Brothers. En esa época, la única película en producción era un musical, El Valle del Arco Iris. El director era un fenómeno de 25 años llamado Francis Ford Coppola.
Francis, at that period, was a legend to me, to George, to all film students, because he had managed to make this impossible leap for the times from film school into professional filmmaking.
Well, it's important to remember that in those days, film directors were not young people, that they were pretty much older men in suits smoking pipes, and it was a very closed fraternity. And so when I saw George, it was sort of like seeing one of my own, or, you know, someone more my age or even a little younger, with my background and with my attitudes towards filmmaking in terms of the studio method as opposed to the new independent method. So I was anxious to have a friend, and as things turned out, something I had never had, which was a younger brother.
Lucas y Coppola se hicieron amigos rápidamente, aunque George comprendió que ni Hollywood ni los musicales eran para él. Francis le ofreció un trabajo como asistente en su siguiente película, un drama llamado Lluvia en mi corazón. Lucas aprovechó la oportunidad.
Would you tell something about your young assistant, George Lucas?
He came, we were making Phineas Rainbow, and one day I was working on the show, and I kept seeing a skinny kid with a beard on, who was always looking. I went up to him and I said, well, you know, I said, who's that? And he said, well, he's observing you.
Mientras trabajaba en Lluvia en mi corazón, George capturó la experiencia en un documental de la vida real acerca de la producción de la película. Lo llamó El Cineasta.
I feel like I'm on the verge of saying, fellas, all jump in the lake. I'm going to make the movie now, unless you can get the police to come and stop me from shooting, because I don't need Warner Brothers. I mean, Warner Brothers can waltz out on the deal, and I've got the money to make the film.
Coppola se convirtió en mentor de George y le enseñó técnicas de filmación, al ilustrarlo acerca del trabajo con actores y demostrarle la importancia del libreto. Lucas, a su vez, hizo su aporte con una visión técnica y una experiencia de la que Coppola carecía.
You know, I used to tell him things like, George, I want every day you to come up with a brilliant idea. That's your assignment. And every day he would come up with a brilliant idea. So, you know, I very quickly understood that this was an exceptional person. But his strengths were in areas different than mine. I had come out of theater, and I had been trying to be a writer for so long, and he had come more out of design and was very strong in editing, and so there was a kind of mutual joining of these specialties.
Luego del rodaje de Lluvia en mi corazón, Coppola y Lucas pensaron en un audaz concepto: crear su propia compañía de cine. Dejarían Hollywood y fundarían su propia comunidad fílmica en San Francisco. Pero pronto sus anhelados ideales serían puestos a prueba. Cuando George Lucas tenía 25 años, ya era un consumado director de cine.
Incredible.
Pero no estaba emocionado por lo que había visto en Hollywood. En 1969, él y su amigo Francis Ford Coppola decidieron crear su propia compañía de cine. La llamaron American Zoetrope. La idea era tan sencilla como romántica. Querían fundar un estudio de cine que no estuviera en Hollywood ni fuera de Hollywood.
We came back to San Francisco, and the coming back to San Francisco was basically a very bold step to say, we are not going to be part of the Hollywood community. We are not going to make movies in Hollywood. We're not going to have anything to do with that. We're about something completely different.
Personal filmmaking, that was a phrase we used a lot. It was personal film was something that you wrote and directed about things that maybe you didn't fully understand that the filmmaking would answer. That would be not just the repeating of a genre film over and over again to feed a money machine, but rather to try to make films that would shed light on life.
Pero el cine no era lo único en lo que George pensaba. También debía ocuparse de una boda. El 22 de febrero de 1969, George Lucas se casó con Marcia Griffin en Pacific Grove, California.
It was a small wedding. It was informal. It was just, very much what you had in those at that time. It was friends. It was a terrific time.
Inmediatamente después de la boda, los Lucas alquilaron una pequeña casa en el condado Marin, en las afueras de la ciudad de San Francisco. Mientras preparaban la casa, George y Francis trabajaban en la instalación de American Zoetrope en el desván de un depósito rentado en el centro de San Francisco.
The early days of Zoetrope were fantastic. It was like just what we had planned. It was like a film school.
Coppola había asegurado un trato con Warner Brothers. Zoetrope entregaría un paquete de 7 películas dirigidas a la juventud en la tradición de bajo presupuesto, pero altas ganancias de Busco mi destino. Sin embargo, había una condición. Si a Warner Brothers no le gustaban las películas, Coppola tendría que reembolsar todo el dinero que se le hubiera entregado. THX, una versión más formal de la película estudiantil de George, fue la primera cinta de American Zoetrope. Como su predecesora, la versión comercial de THX era una cinta realmente singular. Aunque había actores, las verdaderas estrellas de la película eran los efectos gráficos y de sonido. Tras terminar una versión preliminar de la película, Coppola viajó a Los Ángeles para mostrarla en Warner Brothers. La detestaron. Pensaron que era poco comercial y sencillamente absurda.
THX, what did they do to your movie?
Well, they saw it. They didn't understand it at all. I mean, they were completely confused by it.
Warner Brothers.
Warner Brothers. And eventually they cut about 5 minutes out of it. I was very angry.
Well, this was George's first experience with studio interference. And so George spent a season in hell because this was his baby. This was his very first film. And he felt that the studio was mangling it.
La película se estrenó finalmente en 1971. No tuvo mucho éxito, pero posteriormente se convirtió en una especie de clásico de culto.
I think the reason that THX 1138 isn't or wasn't popular in the early 70s was that it was not only pessimistic about the future, it was heavy, it was intellectual, the killer word for any kind of successful movie at the time.
Coppola y Lucas estaban devastados por la recepción de THX, pero lo que finalmente resultó mucho más dañino fue que Warner Brothers cancelara todo el contrato de American Zoetrope.
We were young and we were frightened because that's that they cut a few minutes out of the picture, but that they didn't get it, and they didn't get this wonderful group of young people who were going to clearly make the films of the next couple of decades, and they just not only cut 10 minutes out, they cut us out. They rejected every project we had, and they basically just abandoned us.
Ahora la compañía no tenía ninguna película por hacer y para colmo le debía más de $300,000 a la Warner Brothers. American Zoetrope estaba al borde del fracaso total. A Coppola entonces se le ofreció dirigir una película.
He had been offered a gangster movie, this Godfather thing. I said, well, you better go off and... which at the time was not a big movie. It was a sort of a potboiler, soap opera-y kind of thing, and it wasn't a very big budget. And he said, should I take this? I said, well, I don't think I have any choice. We're in debt. You got to get a job.
Lucas aún estaba muy amargado por la decepción de THX y él y Marcia estaban endeudados. George tuvo que pedirle dinero prestado a su padre y sus amigos para seguir a flote. En esa época creó su propia compañía, Lucasfilm.
I think he struggled. Financially, he was struggling. It was a difficult time for him, and I think being my father's son, he didn't believe in debt.
Lucas comenzó a hacer planes para su siguiente película. Esta vez, pensó, evitaría tratar la vanguardia o el futuro. Haría una película que fuera tanto accesible como comercial, pues su carrera dependía de ello. La primera gran producción de George Lucas, THX 1138, fue un fracaso. George tenía 28 años y decidió hacer una clase diferente de película. Era una cinta acerca de adolescentes de comienzos de los años 60. Trataría de carreras en autos y sería extraída de la propia adolescencia de Lucas en Modesto.
What did you want American Graffiti to say? What did you want it to be about?
You know, this was in the 70s. You know, drugs had taken over. People didn't cruise anymore. And I said, well, this era is over, so it should be documented. I mean, nobody's ever done a movie about it. I mean, not a realistic movie. And then, you know, thematically, I wanted to do another movie about getting out of town, sort of THX in a different form.
Escaping.
Escaping a self-imposed environment.
I don't think I'm going to be going tomorrow.
Come on, what are you talking about?
Well, I was thinking I could wait a year, you know, go to city for a while.
You chicken thing.
Oh, wait a minute.
After all we went through to get accepted, we're finally getting out of this turkey town, and now you want to crawl back into your cell, right?
Lucas escribió un borrador de Locura de Verano y lo distribuyó entre varios estudios. Universal Pictures accedió a financiarla y Francis Ford Coppola fue contratado como productor. Entonces George contrató a dos viejos amigos para coescribir el guión definitivo. Las audiciones comenzaron en el invierno de 1971. George estaba a cargo de la búsqueda, pues era el director. Pero también solía ser discreto y poco comunicativo.
First met him for the first time and he was sitting behind that desk. He hardly said two words to me. He was just mostly looking at me, which makes for a very uncomfortable audition, you know, when someone's just kind of sizing you up and just looking at you but not saying, not interacting.
George pasó meses entrevistando y viendo audiciones de centenares de actores desconocidos para conseguir la mezcla que deseaba. Tenía una inusual habilidad para descubrir estrellas en potencia.
I don't care if you leave this second.
What is wrong with you?
Amazingly, what a talent scout George Lucas was, because so many of them went on to become really enormously successful, or at least terribly busy and welcomed by movie audiences. You know, Harrison Ford right at the top, of course, and Richard Dreyfuss and Cindy Williams and etc. I mean, it had an incredible cast.
Who are you in the movie?
I'm sort of everybody. I mean, if you said, well, if you have to be one character, who are you? I'm Kirk, which is Rick Dreyfuss' character. But I started out as Terry the Toad. And then there was a period where I was John Milner. The only character I really wasn't was Steve. And I have a lot of friends who were the Steves, who stayed and just sort of followed the path that was sort of laid out for them. But I didn't want to do that.
El rodaje de Locura de Verano comenzó el 26 de junio de 1972. Ya que era una producción de bajo presupuesto, Lucas solo tenía 28 días para filmarla. Debido a que la acción de la película tenía lugar en el transcurso de una noche, todo el rodaje debía hacerse entre el ocaso y el amanecer.
Night after night took its toll on George, and George was often asleep by the time it came time to say cut. So I often woke him up to tell him it was time to try it again.
It didn't affect me. I loved it. I mean, I loved working around those kids, around George, and the story, and I really liked being in charge of shooting, so it was a great experience.
Lucas pensaba en darle una visión documental a la película, por lo que no siempre les decía a los actores dónde estaban las cámaras ni cuándo se estaba filmando. Tampoco les decía mucho a los actores en lo relativo a la dirección. Ese se convertiría en su estilo tradicional.
I loved the acting experience. It was as liberating as the kind of maverick new sort of filmmaking style was for me, and I think for the rest of us as actors. It was also a little unnerving because George didn't really particularly talk to us much. And about all he would ever say about a take was, terrific, let's try it again.
Con los años, circularían rumores de que a George no le gustaba trabajar con actores. Lucas lo niega, pero tal impresión estaba bastante clara para algunas de sus estrellas.
Before we actually started filming American Graffiti, one of the things that George did was he just kind of had a lunch with everybody individually. And it was there that I went a little further, saying I'd been accepted to USC and I wanted to be a director. And he said, oh, great, great. He said, make sure you do some animation. Get into the animation department if you can, because it's great. It's great. It's just you. It's a camera. It's the drawings. It's pure cinema. You know, there's no actors. There's nothing getting in the way. So here I am at my actor meeting with the director. and he's basically saying, you know, too bad I have to deal with you.
Lucas terminó Locura de Verano a finales de 1972 e hizo arreglos para una función preliminar en San Francisco. Se presentaron más de 800 personas, entre ellas un ejecutivo de Universal Studios.
1, 2, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, rock. 5, 6, 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, rock. 9, 10, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, rock. We're gonna rock around the clock tonight. Put your glad rags on. Join me home. We'll have some fun when the clock strikes 1. We're gonna rock.
El público prácticamente enloqueció, rió y aplaudió, pero la terrible pesadilla de George estaba comenzando de nuevo. El ejecutivo del estudio detestó la cinta.
He was livid. He thought that it failed, that it was a disaster, that it needed to be recut, and he was saying as much to Francis, who was the producer of the film, and George was sitting there thinking, oh my God, it's THX all over again. They're going to take the film away from me.
So I told Universal, George was sort of like scared, you know, because of this negative reception. I said, hey, I'll write you a check right now and buy the film. I said to the guy, I said, you ought to get on your knees and thank this kid for saving your career.
En definitiva, Universal conservó la película, pero le cortó 5 minutos. Estaban tan disgustados con Locura de Verano que quisieron lanzarla como una película de televisión y no de cine. Locura de Verano fue enviada finalmente a los cines, pero George nunca perdonó al estudio por adulterar su película. Años después, aún molesto, logró su venganza.
You know, both THX and American Graffiti got recut in the end, and I was furious both times. And then after I made Star Wars, I went back to both studios and made them put it back the way it was. So all of the videos and everything now are the original version. They aren't the cut down version. So in terms of history, it'll always be the way it should be.
Locura de Verano no solo fue un éxito de crítica, sino también un éxito comercial. Resultó ser la inversión más rentable que se hubiera realizado en Hollywood hasta ese momento. George no tardó en compartir ese éxito. Dio dinero de sus propias ganancias o porcentajes de los beneficios de la película a aquellos que habían contribuido a la misma. Es una política que mantiene hoy en día.
He gave us each 1/10 of 1%, which I know doesn't sound like much, but when you have a big hit film, it adds up. And that was one of his points that he split, you know, between all the actors. And he didn't have to do that. We didn't ask him for it. He just did that.
George y Marcia ya eran millonarios antes de los 30 años, pero su nueva riqueza no cambió sus vidas de un modo radical.
Money is not the most important thing to him. He's not a conspicuous spender. Yeah, he drives a BMW now and stuff like that. But I mean, for a long time after American Graffiti, he still drove his '69 Camaro. He always wore Levi's. He always wore a basic shirt. He's a genuine guy.
La única compra importante de George y Marcia fue una gran casa victoriana cerca de su hogar en el condado Marin. Querían un lugar donde sus amigos pudieran tener oficinas por poca o ninguna renta. George quería una oficina propia donde pudiera comenzar el laborioso proceso de investigar y escribir una nueva historia de aventuras espaciales. Tras el éxito de Locura de Verano, George Lucas se había convertido en el director de cine más afamado de Hollywood. Era el momento de trabajar en una idea que había estado madurando durante largo tiempo.
Give me the birth of Star Wars.
Star Wars actually started when I was in college. And I sort of gotten very interested in myths and mythology at that point. So I was toying with the idea of doing a modern myth. And then I thought, well, where most mythology takes place in a distant place. So I said, well, the only place that's left really is outer space. I mean, it's the only place where we don't know what's there and where it can be magical.
Se dispuso entonces a crear un moderno cuento de hadas que mezclaría preceptos morales tradicionales con elementos de ciencia ficción. Para documentarse, pasó meses leyendo libros acerca de mitos, cuentos de hadas y psicología.
George believes in stories. I don't think George thinks there's meaning in the universe except as we invest meaning in the stories we tell ourselves.
Tomó elementos de los grandes libros de leyendas y también de las series de vaqueros y Flash Gordon.
George doesn't make things up. He creates new things out of what exists, old stories. And he's taken those old stories and put them in the most modern idiom we have, which is film.
The Force is what gives the Jedi his power. It's an energy field created by all living things. It surrounds us and penetrates us. It binds the galaxy together.
It doesn't have anything to do with special effects. It doesn't have anything to do with spaceships. It has to do with the same thing that made people sit around and listen to a storyteller go on about Helen of Troy.
20th Century Fox accedió a financiar la Guerra de las Galaxias. Lucas pasó 2 años agonizantes escribiéndola, línea tras línea, a mano y con gran cuidado, con lápices comunes en hojas de papel rayado.
It was painful for George because he's not a writer born, he's not a born writer. Still, this day, the writing process is a hard one for him.
Governor Tarkin, I should have expected to find you holding Vader's leash. I recognized your foul stench when I was brought on board.
Charming.
La cinta era la historia de una rebelión contra un gobierno tiránico que estaba ambientada en otra galaxia. En un momento dado, Lucas tuvo un guión de 200 páginas, tan largo que entonces decidió dividirlo. El primer acto se convirtió en la Guerra de las Galaxias. El resto del libreto se convirtió posteriormente en las siguientes 2 películas de la trilogía.
So a lot of my motivation from then on was not only to get this movie made and have it work enough to get the other movies made, because that was what the original vision was.
Para 1976, el libreto definitivo estaba listo y la producción de la película comenzó en Túnez. Algunas semanas después, todos se desplazaron a los estudios en Londres. Los 3 actores protagónicos eran estadounidenses, pero el equipo de producción era británico y estaba, por así decirlo, escéptico acerca de la película.
The British crew thought that we were all out of our minds. They just thought it was ludicrous and stupid.
Ellos no le facilitaron las cosas a George. A algunos técnicos británicos no les agradaba este joven estadounidense arrogante de pantalones vaqueros y zapatos deportivos. Además, el estilo como director de George, callado y modesto, no ayudaba a afianzar su autoridad.
I'm not sure exactly which journalist, but he came and visited the set, and after 3 days said, "Which one is the director?" You know, George always seemed to be able to get somebody else to sort of speak on his, like a translator, from sort of the non-speak to the speak, which was kind of a little bit what his wife was.
Pero los actores se divertían en grande.
Okay, cut it. And.
The mic was in frame.
The mic was in picture. The mic was in picture.
Everyone back to first position.
The sound department has to pay up. Okay, print it and burn it.
Los actores pensaban que la historia y los efectos visuales eran fantásticos, aunque tenían un problema con el libreto de George.
I did tell George one time that you could type this shit, but you couldn't say it. There were lines like, "It'll take a few minutes for the Navicomputer to calculate the coordinates," which had to be said with great energy and verve.
Take a few moments to get the coordinates from the Navicomputer.
You kidding? The rate they're gaining?
Traveling through hyperspacing like dust and crops, boy. Without precise calculations, we'd fly right through a star or bounce too close to a supernova and then it entered Earth real quick, wouldn't it?
Había pasado meses buscando a los actores adecuados, pero una vez que los había encontrado, tenía poco que decirles.
Faster and more intense was the only direction we ever got. And when he lost his voice, which took us days to find out that it actually occurred, we were going to get him a little bored with a horn that said faster and more intense.
I think the problem is simply that George has such a clear vision in his head of what it is that he wants. Actually, trying to get that out of an actor is a bit of an inconvenience. Now, that doesn't mean that he doesn't like actors, that he doesn't appreciate the contribution that they make. It's just that that's not George's favorite part of the job, shooting a movie.
Las presiones sobre George Lucas durante el rodaje fueron enormes. Los técnicos británicos se negaron a trabajar horas adicionales, por lo que la película estaba sumamente atrasada. También se habían excedido en el presupuesto. En los últimos días en Inglaterra, Lucas tenía 3 unidades filmando simultáneamente en el mismo estudio. Era un manicomio según las normas de Hollywood.
I had to reshoot the entire hologram speech because my hair was so dark it disappeared into the blue screen and I looked like Yul Brynner. You know, and so we had to reshoot the whole thing on the last day.
You must see this droid safely delivered to him on Alderaan. This is our most desperate hour. Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi. You're my only hope.
You know, it was like combat shooting, a lot of it too, because we had no time, because there was no budget.
Para cuando regresó a California estaba exhausto. Su compañía de efectos especiales, Industrial Light and Magic, no había logrado prácticamente nada en su ausencia, aunque sí había gastado $1 millón.
It was very, very difficult. I had some very, very tough times. The lowest point was when I came back, I'd fired my editor, I had to reassemble the movie, recut it, and this was in August, and the film was coming out in May, and went down to ILM, and they didn't have one shot. They had 7 shots, all of which were horrible. And I came back and, you know, I thought this is it. You know, I really got myself into a mess that I'll never get myself out of.
Asumió el control personal de los efectos especiales y ya que había despedido a su primer editor, convenció a su esposa, Marcia, de ayudarlo en el proceso.
You really were married to somebody who was in the same business.
Mm-hmm.
And you trusted her judgment, I think.
Well, yeah, I mean, we argued a lot. We didn't have the same taste, really. And it was interesting to hear another point of view. And there was a lot of friction because much of the time I wanted to do it my way.
Durante los 6 meses siguientes, George Lucas trabajó 16 horas al día ininterrumpidamente. Durante ese tiempo logró diseñar un sistema completamente nuevo de cámaras controladas por computadora que le daba a las batallas espaciales el dinamismo que él había previsto.
George, from the very beginning in Star Wars, knew what he wanted, and it was something that I certainly had never seen before. I don't think any of us really had. There's this sense of incredible speed to this big battle that was at the end of the film with these spaceships flying around and doing, you know, spirals and the dogfights that were going on. But it seemed like maybe the idea is beyond what we can do. Now, you want to go to a new level, and I think George sensed where this other level was. You know, he was I guess he liked race cars and all, so he really lived with speed in all his life, and wanted to bring that to those movies.
Tampoco quería que el sonido de esta película pareciera prefabricado o sintetizado. Deseaba sonidos reales en su mundo imaginario, por lo cual contrató a alguien para grabarlos.
He wanted something new and original, and he knew that would take time to develop. They gave me a tape recorder and a microphone, and that began the adventure of Star Wars. I spent a year just roaming about recording things for them.
La película también necesitaba música. Por sugerencia de Steven Spielberg, Lucas contrató a John Williams para componer la banda sinfónica de la película. Se convirtió en uno de los temas musicales de película más reconocidos en la historia del cine. Después de 3 años de trabajo agotador, la Guerra de las Galaxias estaba terminada. No se parecía ni sonaba como ninguna otra película, pero la gran pregunta era, ¿la aceptaría el público? George Lucas terminó una versión preliminar de la Guerra de las Galaxias a comienzos de 1977 e invitó a verla a sus amigos, entre ellos los directores Brian De Palma y Steven Spielberg. Muchos de los efectos especiales aún no estaban completos. Las secuencias de batalla eran solo viejas filmaciones de combates aéreos en la Segunda Guerra Mundial. En palabras de Lucas, era una versión bruta.
You're screening this movie for your friends, And what did they say?
The old famous screening. Well, I showed it to a group of my friends, some of who just thought it was, felt sorry for me and said, oh, gee, that's too bad, George. Some said, oh, this is the worst thing I've ever seen. And some of who liked it.
And then later on, when George and I were together, George said, I think I've just made a kid's movie. I think this is not going to fly, so to speak. And I said, I think it's going to be a big hit. And George said, what do you think it's going to make? And I said, I think it'll make 50 to 60. And George says, yeah, well, I think it'll make 15 to 20. Wow, are we wrong?
Incluso cuando la película estuvo terminada, nadie sabía a qué atenerse.
I often thought that if we really were successful, if this film really worked out, we might get invited to have a table at a Star Trek convention. And I thought that would be the ultimate goal.
I couldn't wait to see it because I had no idea whether it was going to reflect what I read, which was this great vision again. It was this amazing thing that he'd thought of, this other world.
La Guerra de las Galaxias se estrenó en mayo de 1977. Una semana después estaba en los noticieros nocturnos, periódicos y revistas nacionales. Para agosto, la película había recaudado $100 millones. Se convirtió en la cinta más taquillera de la historia y permaneció en la cima durante otros 5 años. La película obviamente produjo un gran impacto. El hecho de que se estrenara en la época del cinismo post-Vietnam y post-Watergate en los años 70 pudo haber ayudado.
Timing is everything in art. You bring out Star Wars too early and it's Buck Rogers. You bring it out too late and it doesn't fit our imagination. You bring it out just as the war in Vietnam is ending, when America feels uncertain of itself, when the old stories have died. And you bring it out at that time and suddenly it's a new game. Also, it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun to watch Star Wars.
La crítica alabó a la Guerra de las Galaxias, aunque hubo algunos escépticos.
There were reviews at the time of the initial movies, too, that said, even though they were respectful and said, it's great seeing a Saturday afternoon at the movies kind of escapist comic book movie, that also said, well, it's shallow. There's really nothing to it. What's here? But to me, as a movie nut, as somebody that looked at that movie and said, what's going on in here? I see everything. I see The Wizard of Oz. I see Hamlet with the Darth Vader figure. I see Flash Gordon, Buck Rogers, comic books, everything that George Lucas's mind was bombarded with as a kid.
Casi 3 décadas después, la película es un clásico que inició una nueva era en la historia del cine.
Star Wars was a breakthrough film for multiple reasons. It was revolutionary in the way it did special effects. No one had ever seen anything like that before. The other revolution of that film, I think, was stylistic, which was the future is not this bright, shining place that was created 10 minutes before the camera rolls. The future has a past, and things can look used and worn out. Another revolution was that George brought to science fiction storytelling on film something which is such an obvious marriage but hadn't been done, which is the power of mythology. Science fiction previously had not truly been mythic. It didn't deal with archetypal characters. And George superimposed the myths and the archetypes on a science fiction landscape and created this fantastic hybrid, which captured the imaginations of a global audience, catapulted science fiction into an A-list genre suddenly. And Hollywood was shocked.
El inmenso éxito de la cinta hizo muy rico a George Lucas. No solo había ganancias en las ventas de boletos, sino que también había beneficios por todo el mercadeo de productos alusivos a la película, ya que Lucas astutamente había conservado todos los derechos en un trato previo al estreno. Todo ese dinero no afectó el estilo de vida de Marcia y George.
I remember when Star Wars had just come out and they had just made a lot of money and they lived in San Rafael and I went to visit them. I was sitting in their kitchen and they had this ice box with beveled glass on the front so you could see what was in it. It was filled from bottom to top with frozen dinners. And I said, you know, I think you guys probably have enough money now, you could get a cook. And they looked at each other and said, oh, that's a good idea.
He didn't go out and buy houses on the Riviera or yachts or boats or lots of cars or things like that, which a lot of people do when they are really flush with success. But George took all of his success and plowed it back into the company.
La compañía era Lucasfilm, el incipiente negocio de George Lucas, quien entonces tenía las manos llenas con la publicidad y la comercialización de la Guerra de las Galaxias. George Lucas tuvo que contratar a más personas para satisfacer la demanda y decidió concentrar su atención inmediata en afianzar la compañía en lugar de dirigir otra película.
I think that the whole Star Wars production thing was very trying and wearing on him, and I also think he had found other things to be interested in.
Nunca llegó a poner en duda que habría secuelas de la Guerra de las Galaxias.
Obviously, the Empire is still there, Darth Vader is still there, and it's going to also evolve with new characters coming in, new problems, new worlds.
En la primavera de 1979 comenzó la producción de El Imperio Contraataca. Lucas la estaba financiando con su propio dinero para poder mantener el control. No deseaba dirigirla, por lo que asumió el papel de productor y contrató a Irving Kershner como director. Pero estaba en el estudio gran parte del tiempo y se notaba claramente su presencia.
Even if he's not ostensibly conducting the orchestra, he wrote the symphony. You know, if he's around, we're all looking at him.
La cinta continuaba la serie de películas acerca de la rebelión en el espacio, pero era más compleja psicológicamente que su predecesora. También significó otro gran avance en cuanto a los efectos visuales y especiales.
One of the things that happened over the films is they got more creative. The vision became bigger. And instead of just doing things in outer space or on Tatooine and the desert planet, we were suddenly on an ice field. And we're in the middle of a forest shooting something.
I always wonder why people don't all scream like I do. Empire's the best, I want Empire.
No escape. Don't make me destroy you.
It's just a solid, personal movie that manages to be fun and also manages to touch you on a human level like no other Star Wars movie has since.
I am your father.
George Lucas había asumido un riesgo financiero al invertir su propio dinero en El Imperio Contraataca. El riesgo valió la pena. La cinta se estrenó en 1980 y recaudó más de $300 millones en taquilla en todo el mundo. George Lucas pensó que ya lo había logrado. Tras el éxito de la Guerra de las Galaxias, George y Marcia Lucas compraron más de 800 hectáreas de terreno en las colinas cerca de San Francisco. Allí Lucas soñaba con construir una sede para su compañía y una nueva clase de comunidad fílmica. La llamó Rancho Skywalker.
George had this vision of creating a film complex that had all of the qualities of a collegial environment that he had experienced in school. I mean, George's days at USC were a really happy time for him.
La construcción de la sede comenzó en 1980. La edificación ocupaba gran parte del tiempo de Lucas. Un autodenominado arquitecto frustrado, Lucas trazó todos los planos preliminares de los edificios. Como de costumbre, le prestó gran atención a todos los detalles.
He always liked the buildings. He still is. I think he loves architecture and building and remodeling things more almost than he does filming. I think he probably enjoys it more, really.
Modelada según una construcción y vinatería victoriana, la estructura fue construida para alojar oficinas, una biblioteca de 12,000 volúmenes e instalaciones de postproducción de muy alta tecnología.
Skywalker Ranch is probably the only place in the world where a filmmaker can go and be in a Disneyland built for filmmakers. I mean, it's the size of Disneyland. It's got everything possible that you could ever want, every toy, every trick, every new cutting-edge tool.
The ranch is what George has always dreamed of. I think it's his studio, his nirvana. It's his place to go work. It's his place to go create. I think that George feels that here in Hollywood or LA that there are too many people that don't know how to make a movie telling you how to make your movie. And he doesn't like that kind of control placed upon him, at least.
Have you created your own Hollywood?
Yeah, I would say so. I've created a film center that is more interested in movies than it is in the business side of things. And the movies I make aren't influenced by people in Hollywood. It's independent of the studios.
Trabajaba y vivía en las colinas y rara vez iba a Los Ángeles o Nueva York. Lucas evitaba el sistema de Hollywood. Todo eso le ha dado a George la casi mítica reputación de ser tímido y poco sociable. Pero sus amigos más cercanos dicen que no es cierto.
Well, I think the media loves to label people for not living in the popular epicenter of society and culture. And so if you don't live in Southern California, you know, you're a recluse, you're Howard Hughes, you're Stanley Kubrick, and it's not fair. George is not that way at all, and I never saw George as shy. He has tremendously strong opinions. He's very focused. Once he gets something into his mind, it's the only way he'll look at it. I mean, George will not look at it from other angles. Once he is certain he's right about something, you know, he's dogged about his theory, his ideas.
Durante los años en que George Lucas construyó el rancho, también expandió Lucasfilm. Además de las películas y la comercialización, la compañía se estaba ramificando hacia los gráficos de computadora y juegos de video. Para 1983, los empleados de la compañía se contaban por centenares. Aunque nunca se consideró un hombre de negocios, George Lucas era la cabeza de una creciente corporación y, como su padre, asumió un enfoque provinciano y cauteloso para dirigir su negocio.
His instincts are to do all the right thing and to do it conservatively. This is not a man who's for spending money. He just plain values doing things well and doing them efficiently. He's not in favor of a lot of grandiose spending.
La vida hogareña de los Lucas también estaba sufriendo grandes cambios. George y Marcia siempre habían querido tener hijos, pero no lo habían logrado. En 1981 adoptaron a una bebé y la llamaron Amanda.
The moment I saw her, my life was completely different. You know, she was like 4 hours old and holding her in my arms. I'll never forget that moment as long as I live. It's just, suddenly she was the most important thing in my life, not movies.
Why?
I don't know why. I mean, it was magic. It was truly magic. I mean, it was one of those little moments that you just can't understand quite what happened. Maybe you could describe it like love at first sight, when you sort of walk in a room and there suddenly is that person. It was, you know, like electricity. It was just, suddenly I was just holding this little tiny baby. She was a little tiny thing. And she was looking up at me and she was just, it was just, I just said, this is it. I mean, I just fell in love and just said, this is the center of my life now.
De pronto el mundo de George Lucas se había ensanchado aún más, pero siempre encontraba tiempo para hacer películas. En 1981, él y su mejor amigo Steven Spielberg iniciaron la producción de Cazadores del Arca Perdida. El concepto era original de George. Deseaba filmar una historia de aventuras similar a las viejas series de cine de los años 30 y 40 que tanto había disfrutado cuando era niño.
Oh, you're all mad. If we go any deeper, the submarine will crush like the shell of an egg.
I came up with the idea for an archaeologist who would get involved in kind of supernatural artifacts and who was kind of a cross between a grave robber and a serious archaeologist.
Fue el productor ejecutivo de la película y Steven Spielberg el director.
We have to get more snakes. You know what we really need? We need about 7,000 snakes.
Let's reconsider this whole thing.
Filming Raiders was arduous. The hours were long, the schedule was tough, but it was absolutely, for me, almost the most fun I've ever had on a film.
Cuando la película estuvo terminada, Spielberg se la mostró a Lucas, quien luego la editó parcialmente.
Substantially the same movie I showed George, except it was leaner and it was more taut and it had a little more energy in the middle where all middles of all movies always sag. And he did a wonderful thing. I had made a much longer special effects scene at the end of Raiders, and George cut it in half. And in cutting the running time of the last sequence where the arc is opened in half, it was so overwhelming and so powerful that you wanted to see the movie again just to experience that last 3 minutes, whereas my version was 6 minutes. I think George's strongest suit is editing. He is a brilliant film editor.
Cazadores del Arca Perdida se convirtió en la película más taquillera de ese año y una de las cintas más populares de la historia. Luego Lucas y Spielberg hicieron 2 secuelas de Indiana Jones y ahora esperan rodar una 4ª. Estos 2 voluntariosos personajes trabajan muy bien juntos.
So I would say we have to move on. Let's deliver. Let's go.
The respect that the two of them have for each other is amazing. And George doesn't impose himself on Stephen in a way that it gets to be a problem. And so George, he has his opinions and he has his ideas, but he respects the director.
Pero aún no había terminado con la Guerra de las Galaxias en lo absoluto. En enero de 1982 se inició la producción de El Regreso del Jedi, que es la resolución de la relación de Darth Vader y Luke Skywalker.
Now, go, my son. Leave me.
No, you're coming with me. I'll not leave you here. I've got to save you.
You already have.
It's about redemption. I mean, the original film was this big film about redemption and about, you know, the new generation redeeming the older generation. It's up to the sons to resurrect the ideals and the ambitions of the fathers, you know, and to take their dreams that they couldn't quite capture because they stumbled and fell or got shot or turned evil, and try to make them real.
El Regreso del Jedi fue otro éxito. Sin embargo, para George, su triunfo se vio ensombrecido por un doloroso giro en su matrimonio. Su esposa Marcia estaba enamorada de otro hombre y lo abandonó.
The marriage doesn't work. How come? What happened?
You know, she was not feeling happy, and she was feeling, I think, that the reason she was not feeling happy was because I wasn't being able to spend enough time with her or pay enough attention, or I couldn't see it. You know, I was very much in love, and just finally she just didn't want anything more to do with it. So it was a big shock for me, and it was a very difficult time. It was, you know, you think your life is all stable and together, and the people you love are going to be there, and it turn around one day and everything's different.
Marcia solicitó el divorcio y obtuvo la mitad del dinero de George en el arreglo. Pasarían años antes de que George y el rancho Skywalker se recuperaran del golpe. Marcia Lucas se separó de George Lucas en 1983 y el divorcio lo afectó enormemente tanto a él como al rancho Skywalker. Debió esforzarse para mantener sus operaciones a flote y afirma que entró en un infierno de 7 años.
My life was a shambles. The only thing I really had left was Amanda.
1, 2.
So I simply said, I will produce a movie here and there to get us through, but I'm going to basically raise my child. That's my primary focus here.
Durante los 10 años siguientes, fue el productor ejecutivo de varias películas, como Howard, un nuevo héroe, y Willow. También estaban repletas de efectos especiales, pero no tuvieron gran trascendencia en taquilla.
People look at George Lucas and they say, this is so successful, so unbelievably, what a career, and the movies he made. And there were movies that you were involved with that actually didn't do so well.
I love all the movies I made. There isn't a movie I've made that I'm ashamed of or that I don't like to watch. But some of them have been financial disasters and haven't made a dime. Whether it's successful or not, to be very honest with you, is not a big deal for me. I'm really in it just for the fun of the making of the movies.
Parte de la diversión de hacer cine es trabajar con personas conocidas. solía contratar a amigos como sus directores y a actores de sus primeras películas. Ellos, a su vez, encontraron a un George que se mostraba más abierto y accesible.
When we did Radioland Murders, George had definitely changed, and he had changed for the better. He was more outgoing. Success had, helped him out. It had brought him out. It made him blossom. And he was much more chatty and much more comfortable.
Aunque sus películas no eran grandes éxitos financieros, algunas de las compañías de George Lucas progresaban a finales de los 80. Industrial Light and Magic, o ILM, se convirtió en la mejor compañía de efectos especiales y gráficos de computadora de Estados Unidos. ILM produjo los extraordinarios efectos especiales de más de 120 películas, entre ellas Parque Jurásico, Impacto Profundo y El Abismo.
All of ILM's work on The Abyss is located within one scene or one sequence, where the water takes on intelligent control, rises up, travels through the ship, encounters the people, takes on their faces, attempts to communicate with them, and then sort of gets cut off at the source and collapses. 16 shots. And yet, it was the first time that I know of that computer graphics were used photorealistically in a scene to generate an object that was non-existent from the standpoint. It's very common now, but it was very unusual in its time, and to have people interacting with it.
Pero el éxito no llegó fácil ni rápidamente. Lucas había invertido dinero en ILM durante años antes de que produjera ganancias. También asumió un gran riesgo al crear otras nuevas tecnologías que estaban adelantadas a su tiempo. Ahora, por supuesto, el mundo se ha puesto al día y Lucas se muestra profético.
He's a visionary because it takes a visionary to stick with something that fails for many years. But he sees the end result and he works his way to it. And he goes through, with his machete, he goes through briar and he goes through quicksand and he hangs off cliffs with one hand, and he is a kind of dweeby Indiana Jones. And that's what we all love about him.
Durante los 90, Lucasfilm se expandió y luego se dividió en diversas compañías. Casi 2,000 personas trabajan ahora para Lucas. Además de guionista, editor y director de cine, George Lucas es el presidente de la junta directiva de 5 diferentes compañías.
I think that the reason he is able to wear so many hats and to change those hats with a fair amount of ease is that George is an extraordinarily focused person. He is totally focused on what it is that he's doing in the moment.
Oh, what's this?
El proyecto más acariciado por George Lucas en la actualidad es una fundación que ha creado para innovar la educación. El joven que detestaba los estudios ahora pasa mucho tiempo pensando en ellos.
So I started a foundation that really tries to take all of the uses of technology and sift them down so that they all make sense in terms of what people are actually doing. There's a lot of ways to teach kids where they become extremely engaged in what they're doing.
Con todas esas compañías y todos esos empleados, Lucas aún logra mantener un control estricto sobre todas las decisiones. Como de costumbre, es su estilo el que se impone.
Lucasfilm has always been somewhat of it's a dictatorship. I mean, George is a benign dictator, and so he is controlling because it's his sandbox, we often say, his toys that we can play with.
Pero todas estas preocupaciones comerciales son secundarias en la vida de Lucas. Su prioridad son sus hijos. En 1988 adoptó por cuenta propia a otra niña, Katie. 5 años después adoptó a un niño para gran alegría de su hija. Lo llamaron Jet.
They wanted a brother. I wanted another daughter because the girls were so wonderful. I had such a great time, and I have to admit now that I've gotten to know the little lad that I really like boys. I mean, it's great to have somebody that understands explosions and the really important things in life. Football.
Okay, cut.
That was a good one.
So, girls are great, but boys are a lot of fun too.
That's it.
George está consagrado por completo a sus hijos y planifica toda su vida pensando en ellos.
We've always had a good relationship, and he's always been an awesome dad. He puts his family first, and he's not a workaholic. He works a lot, but he's home at dinner you know, almost every night. He drives my sister and brother to school every day. Actually, he's around too much. He's always around. I mean, he's always coming up to me, bugging me, going, do you want to go to a movie?
Anyway, we're going to get the CDs, we're going to have lunch, we're going to drive down to your cousin's house, and then we're going to go to the football game. And it will probably be cold down there, so I suggest everybody dress warmly.
Para divertirse, George Lucas y su familia disfrutan ir de compras. Su lugar favorito de vacaciones es Disney World, aunque en realidad les encanta estar en casa.
I've read in the paper that he's like a recluse. I mean, he is not like that at all. Like, we'll be in the car and like people will recognize him and start honking, and he'll turn and he'll be like, hi, hi, and then I'll be like, you don't know them, and he's like, oh, hi. And I'll keep waving, and he's just so sweet. I don't know, I couldn't imagine having any other dad.
No se ha casado de nuevo, aunque sale en ocasiones. Tuvo una relación de 4 años con la cantante Linda Ronstadt, pero se terminó porque ella no deseaba casarse.
I think George would like to be with somebody and share his life with somebody. Yes, you know, he has 3 terrific kids, and I think he's a great dad, and he loves his family and loves that whole family thing, and sure, I think he'd love to be sharing it with somebody.
Pero no sería George Lucas si no estuviera pensando en hacer alguna nueva película. Aún tenía muchas historias que contar acerca de la vida en esa otra galaxia. Contaba con más de 50 años a medida que se aproximaba el milenio, pero no pretendía aminorar la marcha.
7:15 showing of Star Wars. Please have your tickets in your individual hands.
En 1997, Lucasfilm estrenó la edición especial de La Guerra de las Galaxias, con versiones reeditadas digitalmente de la trilogía original, con algunas escenas adicionales. Las 3 películas recaudaron más de $450 millones solo en taquilla y ratificaron a La Guerra de las Galaxias como una de las series más taquilleras de todos los tiempos.
Star Wars! Right now, yes.
I'm here for the remake, man! It's Star Wars! It's Leia, it's light.
En 1997 comenzó la producción del episodio 1, La Amenaza Fantasma. Esta fue la primera de las llamadas presecuelas, 3 películas que describen el pasado de las vidas de los personajes de la serie. Lucas había escrito los conceptos generales de las películas cuando redactó el guión original de La Guerra de las Galaxias en 1975. El libreto detallado del episodio 1 se inició en 1995. Era su primera labor como director en 20 años.
I think the process of doing it was much more appealing to him now. And his children were older, and he was very comfortable having them on the set. The Star Wars saga is his baby, and he knows it better than anybody else knows it.
Like that. Now you gotta kick it.
También pensaba que la tecnología, la cual había ayudado a crear, había avanzado a un punto donde él finalmente podía contar la historia tal como lo había previsto. La película tiene más de 2.000 tomas de efectos especiales, 4 veces más que Titanic, y presenta los primeros personajes digitales fotorrealistas, que de hecho tienen diálogos e interactúan con los actores de carne y hueso.
Patience, my blue friend. You'll have your winnings before the sun set, and you'll be far away from here.
Not if you're the ship it belongs to me, I think, huh?
I remember the first time seeing the model of Watto, this little junk ship guy, you know. And we had this wonderful actor who was going to supply the voice, you know. But I looked at this thing, I can't believe, I thought, you know, I could be a monkey smoking a cigarette. No one's going to look at me when this thing's hovering about, you know.
La expectativa antes de su estreno fue un verdadero pandemonio. Todos los grandes medios produjeron artículos y programas alusivos. La película se estrenó en mayo de 1999 y para finales de año ya había recaudado cerca de $1.000 millones en taquilla. Obviamente fue muy bien recibida por el público, aunque la reacción de la crítica fue muy diversa. Algunos pensaron que estaba pobremente escrita y actuada.
Critics can stand on mountaintops and scream, this isn't good, the acting is bad over here, the jokes are horrible, what is he doing, what's happened to him? It's not going to matter because he's created something that nobody else has ever been able to pull off. He's created his own world and he's made us live in it. That's remarkable.
I retransmitted it just as you had requested, Master. And we decided to come and rescue you. Good job.
Lucas está trabajando en el episodio 3 de La Guerra de las Galaxias, que también coescribió y ahora dirige. Será estrenada en el 2005 y significa el fin de la saga.
I'm going to switch that around. I want to see what happens.
El episodio 2 de La Guerra de las Galaxias, El ataque de los clones, fue estrenado en el verano del 2002. De nuevo fue un tema familiar. Jet encarnó a un joven Jedi y Katie interpretó el papel de una Twi'lek púrpura. Lucas sigue siendo un innovador. Esta fue la primera producción de cine de su clase en ser filmada con cámaras digitales de video de alta definición. Una producción totalmente libre de cinta de celuloide.
George has made a career out of anticipating what the next big wave is going to be and trying to make it happen, trying to facilitate it happening. And I think he does it just so he can have the stuff, just so it can make his art better. And if everybody else can benefit from it, well, fine. Can't help that.
George Lucas is the guy who makes THX, who makes the Star Wars movies. He has 2,000 people working for him now who do all this unbelievable digital technology, and it's a million miles ahead of everybody who's racing to catch up. But you strike me as, in many ways, an old-fashioned guy.
You know, what it really comes down to in the end, I think, is that I'm a romantic. I'm interested in stories, in adventure, in romance. And that's sort of where my aesthetic life is. That's the things I care about and I like. The technology side of it, for me, is not about technology. It's about widening and expanding the artist's ability to tell a story. So, I still have about 5 or 6 pages of script to write, and I thought I was all done.
Han pasado más de 50 años desde que George Lucas comenzó a narrar su historia. Aunque el alcance y la escala de sus relatos hayan cambiado, el impulso de contarlos es más fuerte que nunca.
He has augmented all of our natural imaginations, and he's made us strive, you know, and yearn for something beyond our own capabilities to imagine.
He's changed the way we look at movies. That's an amazing legacy. The real fascinating thing is, while a lot of other people in his position who made all that money, who would just stay on their mountaintop and enjoy their life, he's still trying to change the way we look at movies, and I salute him for that.